It was Friday, January 30th, and he had spent weeks pulling out rocks, gravel, and sand to clear enough room for him to try to squeeze through a narrow fissure beneath the passage.
Chat, y'all want to go squeeze through that? It's a regular Tuesday activity. Everyone in this chat loves cave diving.
Once he pushed himself down through the tiny crack, he slid down the wall for an 8-foot drop to the floor of a large cavern.
Wait, I actually have a question. I'm gonna read your answers. Would you guys rather have jury duty once a week for the rest of your life, or go cave diving one time? You actually got to think about that. Jury duty?
The entire passage up to this point was basically crawling, squeezing, and inching along. He would surely have to widen the path for others to get in, and shore up the crumbling walls and ceiling, but in time, he would be able to make it a paid tourist destination. This was Floyd's dream finally coming true. Unfortunately, the gas lamp he was using for light was starting to run out of fuel.
Oh!
He scrambled back up the wall and pulled his body through the narrow crack, laying down in the angled passage that led back to the rest of the 140 feet of tunnel.
Bro.
When he pushed the lantern forward, the jagged surface caught the base and flipped the lamp. The light was out, and Floyd would have to travel the rest of the way in complete darkness.
Oh!
He laid on his back and used his legs to slide his body across the rough rocks below him. He knew that a careful dance was needed to move through this man-made tunnel of his. In the darkness, he put his foot on the wall and was completely unaware that he was about to make a catastrophic mistake. He pushed his body back toward the slide, and an incredible rumble of rocks and dust filled the tight tunnel. Floyd screamed in pain as he choked on the dusty debris. The crumbling continued as he thrashed in pain, trying to move his left leg from the vise that gripped his ankle. He was struck by the shocking realization that his arms were trapped as tightly as his legs. Floyd was buried in a tunnel that was only 16 inches high, and in a...
Oh my fucking God. What?!
wormhole over 140 feet into the earth. It was a shocking pain, but this wasn't the first time Floyd had been trapped in a cave. Just a year before, it had taken 2 days to get out of Crystal Cave, his first big caving discovery. But this time, he was all alone. It was Friday morning, and he wouldn't expect anyone to come looking for him anytime soon. He strained and struggled against the mound.
And he does it a year
with
later!
Absolutely no movement in his left foot. It was trapped under a large rock and a massive pile of debris. His arms were entombed in a jumble of rocks, gravel, and dirt that packed in around his body in the small passage. Floyd took some breaths to relax himself and start the long process of waiting. Eventually, someone would come looking for him and see his jacket and hat hanging outside the cave entrance. The complete darkness and absolute silence made...
Oh my God, he's in the darkness and the silence. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's completely dark and completely silent.
Dripping on his face, particularly annoying. A slow drip of water was landing on his face every so often.
No.
A smattering of sand escaped the cavity above him and piled on his already impossible position. After hours of laying trapped and straining his muscles against the immovable rocks, he fell asleep for a small escape from this nightmare.
Dude, he's getting waterboarded.
When Floyd woke, he was jolted to the reality of his insane position. It was pitch blackness, and his face was wet, with no way to reach up and wipe the water away. He shook his head back and forth in the only movement he had available to him. He screamed off and on, hoping that someone may be coming to check on him.
No, that's actually a form of
torture. The effort he had
torture.
put into trying to move his body was exhausting. His fingers scraped against rocks and gravel.
Moist with the tier 1, thank you.
His arms were tightly pressed against his body. The sun had set on Friday, and now morning had come without anyone knowing that Floyd was trapped. He continued his cycles of screaming and struggling against the rock, then passing out from exhaustion. The landowner's teenage son went out to check on Floyd, since he never came back the night before. It wasn't that unusual for Floyd to sleep out in one of the other buildings on the land, or even in the cave itself. Jewel Estes saw Floyd's coat and slid inside the entrance of the cave.
Jewel, bro.
He called out to Floyd, and a relieved Floyd called back that he needed help. Jewel was a small kid, but not really a cave guy. He squeezed through one of the tight breakdown areas, but stopped in what is called the turnaround room. He could clearly hear Floyd, but just didn't have the nerve to try to put his head through the insane opening where
Don't!
Floyd's voice
Jewel,
was coming
don't do it!
Floyd understood and knew that he needed some serious help from his brothers. He sent Jewel away to get some adults who had experience with this kind of rescue. Though he was hungry and thirsty, Floyd was relieved. Someone actually knew where he was,
Bro.
so they would have him out in no time. He knew that more than 24 hours had passed in this
Here we go, we're
position.
back to where we were.
The water continued to drip intermittently on his
That's
face.
so bad.
And the throbbing pain of his foot was a constant presence.
Yeah, Chinese water
He
torture.
waited a few
Is that
hours,
it?
and one of his brothers finally made it to the cave. He too climbed inside to see what was going on, but he couldn't reach the spot where Floyd was trapped. After more than 100 feet of crawling and squeezing, the limiting hole was staring him in the face. It was just under 9 inches high, the width of a sheet of paper.
What the fuck, bro? Imagine trying to fucking climb through a sheet of paper!
It was emotionally daunting to even try to poke your head inside, but a true physical impossibility for larger men. They sent for Floyd's younger brother, Homer. At 22 years old, he was small and had a little experience.
Dude, it's a reason. Honest to God, I'm not even trying to be funny. There's a reason women probably aren't cave divers, bro. Women are just naturally, like, curvier than men. Men can kind of have a straight build. Bro, that makes total sense. We've yet to see a fucking woman go cave diving because it's actually impossible, and they're probably smarter.
Experience in the caves with Floyd. It was 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon when Homer arrived.
9 inches? Bro, not... Where's the sheet of paper? I have a sheet of paper right here. Bro. Y'all trying to climb through this? Y'all genuinely trying to climb through this? My fucking head is the size. Dude, if I, if I go as small as possible, bro. Like, I can't fucking... Like, what do you mean? That's insane.
And ducked into the cave to help his brother.
Bro, 9
Homer
inches.
realized that it had been 30 hours since his brother had had food or water.
Never mind.
And was in a truly serious situation if he hadn't been able to free himself yet. Homer squeezed past the first narrow blockade and twisted through the 100 feet of passage leading to the turnaround room. The others had in fact turned around here, but Homer had no choice.
Homer had to do it.
His big brother was stuck on the other side of this little hole,
Oh, it's just big.
so he was going in. Floyd yelled out and instructed Homer on what kind of path was ahead for the next 25 feet. It was a flat, narrow passage with a jagged, rocky bottom. It wasn't an easy crawl, and required Homer to push forward with his toes while scraping along his belly. There was a little lip of rock to perch on above the slide down to Floyd.
Where your ass been
Homer
at?
thought
Hey, I got
entering
banned on the
tiny
main,
passage was
bro!
the tough part, but now he looked down to see his brother's face below him. The slide down to him was just 10 feet, but it was narrow. Extremely narrow. He came down
What,
feet
Spence?
first, but the narrow tunnel would hold his body in the upright position. He would have trouble squatting down or bending over to help Floyd.
He's there.
Nonetheless, Floyd was happy to finally see someone inside his little cave.
Okay.
Homer slid down to help, but found the situation shocking. Floyd was buried up to his chest in
Said
rubble.
what's good, bro.
If the slide tunnel wasn't so small, this might not have seemed so daunting, but the nature of the situation limited Homer from just reaching in and raking the rocks out of the tunnel.
Fuck.
There was nowhere to move them to, and even if there was, reaching them would require an incredible contortion of his body. Homer brought coffee and sausage to Floyd, and it renewed his vigor in knowing his family was here to save him. Homer moved up and down the shaft, trying to pull Floyd, move rocks to free his arm, and dig out the floor of the shaft so he could squat down to reach into Floyd's tunnel.
Hey, yo! Okay, what is that wording? He's pulling on his shaft so he can reach in his tunnel?
Because no one else could squeeze through the hole in the turnaround room, Homer was on his own trying to move the earth around Floyd. Each time he pulled away a rock or some dirt, more fell from the exposed, packed earth above the tunnel. Homer was desperate.
So right now, right? If anyone's just tuning in, right now, Spence can handle the 9 inches, no matter how big his hole is. And he's helping his brother by touching his shaft and reaching inside of his tunnel. If anyone's just tuning in.
And worked on and off for the next 16 hours, digging, climbing, and sliding back down. He had strained his body in the most uncomfortable squat and reach position to try to make a move that would improve Floyd's situation. It was 8 o'clock Sunday morning when Homer came out of the cave. He needed assistance because he could barely walk from the exertion he had put out.
Oh my god, that's him.
He collapsed and begged someone
Oh my god, it's Collins.
to go down to help dig his brother out. The crowd had started to build while Homer was underground. Word had spread that Floyd was really trapped this time, and the locals began to gather to see if they could help. Several men had worked their way into the cave tunnels and came to the turnaround room. A few were paralyzed with fear and turned back straight away. It looked like a crumbling hole of boulders with rocks just dangling over the opening.
God, it's so sad,
A
though.
few of the men put their lights inside the hole and looked at the distance and quality of the tight tunnel. They knew Floyd was currently trapped because of a collapse, so risking it in this hole would be foolish.
So they're not trying to risk it in the wrong hole right now.
There were others who were willing to try, but just could not fit in the small opening.
So yeah, there's...
Throughout the day on Sunday, the gathering crowd discussed options on how to get Floyd free and went in and out of the cave tunnels without ever passing through the small
Too many
squeeze.
alley-oops.
The entire day Sunday, no one was able to reach Floyd to offer him water, food, or comfort.
Fuck!
It was now 3 full days of being trapped. It was shocking to Floyd. He was grateful that food and drink were brought in, but his situation was not improved. His arms were still trapped, his foot crushed, and there seemed to be no great plan to get him out. Floyd was feeling weak and cold. His body was laying in a pool of cold, muddy water and jagged rocks. His body temperature was dropping, and he was losing strength each day. He was completely at the mercy of those gathered outside. Homer was drained, but woke to find that no one else was able to reach his brother. He grabbed a bucket and some coffee and made his way back to the cave. His muscles were sore.
Wait, I'm not trying to be funny. He's just peeing and pooping his pants then, right? If you're down there, he's shitting himself and peeing his pants.
And his body was damaged from scraping himself through the slide tunnel over and over. His fingers were raw from the desperate struggle to move the pile off his big brother's weakened body.
Fuck!
But what could he do? He yelled at the crowd to help him, and they shamefully looked away, knowing they weren't able to make themselves past the ridiculous hole that was the gateway to Floyd's rescue. Homer spent the evening removing rocks from the slide and pile around Floyd. News had traveled that a man had been stuck in a cave for 3 days now, so reporter William Skeets Miller showed up to
Holy aura, is that me?
report on the growing story. Hundreds of
What's
people
good, bro? All
started
good,
showing
man?
up just to gawk at the gathering rescue teams, and it had become quite the spectacle. Miller crawled inside the twisting tunnel
Skeets?
until he came to the turnaround room. He was shocked by the size of the rocky hole in the corner, barely bigger than a sheet of paper. Luckily, Skeets Miller was a wiry guy,
Go
weighing
on,
only
Skeets!
117 pounds. He thought if Floyd and Homer had made it,
Yeah, also, you guys see that? Outside of the cave, fucking hot dog and hamburger vendors were pulling up and fucking selling shit.
then he probably could too. The jumble of rocks was hardly a tunnel, but Miller pulled his chest and hips through the opening. With some twisting and contortions, he was actually through this
I'm
tiniest
23,
hole.
bro.
The path on the other side was less than 16 inches high, so he just crawled forward to a small ledge. He could see over the edge was a 10-foot drop to where Floyd was trapped. Even though he found the nerve to push through the tiny squeeze in the turnaround room, he was now faced with a new fear looking down the slide. The pit off the ledge was a narrow drop, at a 30-degree angle. The shaft was narrow and flat, like a chimney. It was enough room to slide his body to the bottom, but he wouldn't be able to move his arms well or bend over to look into Floyd's trap. At this point, he was going to slide down and offer Floyd some coffee while he asked his questions.
Why do they keep giving him coffee? Is it so his stomach, so it doesn't get bloated? I'm not even trolling.
Floyd's face was covered with a cloth, which he promptly removed. Instantly, Floyd asked that he put it back. The torture of the water droplets had been steady hitting his face for 3 days, and he couldn't take it any longer. Skeets asked his questions, and quickly gave Floyd a drink before scrambling back up the shaft to the...
Bro, what? Yeah, what a journalist. Bro, how many journalists do you know in 2026 that are going down on a cave dive to pop a few questions for the guy that's stuck to shoot back up?
ledge.
Look at
Skeets
Skeet,
Miller
man.
was stunned. He had never seen such a hopeless situation, and really couldn't imagine how they would be getting him out. Once he was out, he wrote up his story and sent it out over the wires. He was haunted by what he saw. He had only been down there for 20 minutes, and couldn't imagine how Floyd was coping after 75
Skeet
hours
moving
of
like
being
Peter
trapped
Parker
in
in
there.
Spider-Man 1, bitch.
Miller was sure that the many experts on site would have Floyd out in no time, so he left it to the professional.
Bro, look at this shit. Chat, if you're curious what this image is, this is an image of the town gathering around the cave. Bro, this is some... And dude's got a hamburger stand. This dude's making enough money to fucking get a brand new fucking Henry Ford or whatever the goddamn cars are called back in the 50s. He's making so much money off this poor guy.
Although there were many experts giving opinions on what to do, very few viable plans were proposed. Professionals from many fields spent hours
Supply and
thinking through the
demand?
various aspects.
Bro, someone get this guy a damn hot dog. They keep giving him coffee, and I know they burnt it.
Of air quality, temperature, rock formations, size, and constraints on Floyd's position. With all of their expertise, not one of them was willing or able to squeeze past the tiny hole in the turnaround room. Skeets Miller's trip down had boosted Floyd's spirits, but it was already Monday afternoon, and Homer had been the only person who had actually done anything to possibly free his brother. The news story really took
Pinned beneath Big Boulder and Crystal Cave for 3 days. Come get a fucking hamburger.
off, and the nation was captivated by the man stuck inside the cave. But all this interest and gawking did nothing to move forward a rescue plan. A local firefighter, Lieutenant Robert Burden, showed up with a plan.
Come on.
He was going to pull Floyd free with ropes and a harness. It was a questionable idea, but honestly nothing else was really working. Homer removing sand and rock by himself would take weeks, and Floyd just didn't have that kind of time. Burden knew that there was a risk that they might even pull Floyd's foot off. But it was an outcome that everyone was willing to face, even Floyd himself. Burden squeezed into the narrow shaft, becoming just the third person to get face-to-face with Floyd. He was astonished at Floyd's predicament.
Not sure.
He could barely bend down to reach into the short tunnel where Floyd lay buried. The shaft he was standing in was a chimney, keeping him from fully bending his knees or switching arms from the up or down position.
This is so fucked.
He struggled to wrap the harness around his chest and shoulders, because very little of Floyd was fully exposed.
Are they gonna save him?
Homer had done some work to clear gravel and rocks from around Floyd's upper body, but more rocky debris just continued to tumble down. Once it was set, Burden was already sweating and pained from the difficult position.
They might save him.
He was so confident in his plan that he quickly called for Miller and Homer to get into the inner section of the tunnel, up on the ledge, and help him pull. The three men pulled with everything they had, while Floyd screamed out in an incredible amount of pain.
Ow!
Unfortunately, the effort failed to put any real tension on the foot that was trapped, but mostly pressed Floyd's face and chest against the jagged pile of rocks on top of him. He couldn't expand his chest to breathe, and they were literally crushing him. It was 5 o'clock on Monday, February 2nd, and another plan had ended in failure. It seemed impossible that despite all the commotion, effort, and collective expertise up top, not a shred of progress had been made to free
Fuck!
Floyd. But that was about to change.
Skeets?
At 9 o'clock that night,
Johnny.
Floyd's longtime friend Johnny Gerald arrived.
Go on, Johnny!
Sure that Floyd would get out, because he always had before.
Go on, Johnny!
Just a year earlier, Johnny had helped rescue him from Crystal Cave,
Go on!
where he spent 2 days underground. Johnny was an experienced caver, so when Floyd heard that his old friend was here, he immediately yelled out in relief that Johnny would be able to get him out. Like those before him, Johnny moved through the tunnels of the cave to the turnaround room.
So many people.
He saw the hole in front of him and felt a twinge of nerves. Floyd
this,
was
Johnny.
a lot smaller than he was.
You got this, Johnny.
Johnny had always been a bit stocky.
Come on,
His
John!
strength could usually make up for what he lacked in height.
Come on, Johnny!
In this case, physical strength was no real advantage, but his mental strength was essential. He jammed his body through the tiny hole, dislodging some small rocks as he moved through.
Come on, Johnny.
The silty dusting that fell all around him was frightening. He belly crawled to the ledge and looked down to see the face of his old friend at the bottom of the narrow shaft.
Come on, Johnny.
Floyd felt the first moment of joy in days. He was reinvigorated with hope that he might just make it out of this hole, with his foot intact. Johnny tried to slide his body down feet first, but was wedged in the narrow shaft.
No.
He adjusted and pushed, but was afraid of getting stuck before helping Floyd at all.
No.
It was clear that he just would not fit.
Why is this guy... Is Johnny fat or something? Look at his build!
For most people, they would accept that they had honestly tried, but the rescue would have to be left to others. But not Johnny.
Don't get stuck, Johnny!
He could hear the desperation in Floyd's voice, and just could not bear to leave.
If he gets stuck.
Johnny spent the next 3 hours chipping away rock in the narrow shaft.
Oh, good.
He chiseled at areas that pinched in together,
No,
carefully catching the chips to prevent hitting Floyd down below.
Wow! Oh my god, Johnny. Pay Johnny the max contract.
Midnight, Johnny was tired, but ready to try again. This time, he was able to slide down the shaft and reach Floyd in the narrow tunnel below.
Yes, Johnny.
For the next 6 hours, Johnny put his muscle to good use. He filled buckets with rocks and gravel that had buried Floyd's chest.
Yes, Johnny.
Each effort required him to press his head in an awkward angle to reach his arms into Floyd's tunnel.
Yes, Johnny.
He pulled and scraped and filled the buckets.
Yes, Johnny.
They were hauled up and dumped so he could make some room to free Floyd's arms and
Yes,
hopefully get
Johnny.
that rock off of his foot. After a grueling 6 hours of squatting and bending, straining every muscle, Johnny had gone as far as he could go. His stocky frame could not reach any farther than Floyd's upper thigh area.
Okay, that's fine.
It was now early Tuesday morning.
Go on, Johnny!
He headed back up to rest for a short time. After Johnny had gone up, Floyd laid alone in his narrow tunnel for the next 12 hours.
Damn.
And it was especially tough. It seemed like so much progress had been made, but the ultimate problem still existed.
The foot is just...
No matter how hard he pulled or twisted, there was no moving his foot. He was cold and truly afraid. He was lying in a pool of muddy water that was 50 degrees, and the blanket...
That's literally the temperature they had it at in the torture strategy. Do you remember from the CIA video? That's literally the temperature. That's cold enough to get colder and your body temperature drop, and that's also warm enough to stay alive.
Blankets they brought in didn't stop the chill in his bones. Floyd had been stuck for more than 4 full days and hadn't seen the sun since early Friday morning. He was feeling strange and starting to hallucinate about angels and sleeping in his own bed. The time creeped by slowly, and he wondered when someone would be back to help him. And so, he waited. Skeets Miller had continued to file reports on what was happening with Floyd's entrapment.
Go on, Skeets.
But checked in on Tuesday afternoon to discover that he was still in the same spot, and no plans had come together to get his foot free. The overwhelming problem continued to be that no one was willing to squeeze through the impossible hole that separated Floyd from all the experts. Miller was moved. He realized that he was among a select few who were able to reach Floyd.
Come on.
So he gathered all the cave workers he could and decided to continue with Johnny's work since he was much smaller. At 5:30 on Tuesday evening, he returned to the narrow shaft and used a bucket to continue removing the loose rocks and gravel around Floyd's legs.
Bro, it's about the foot.
He had to squeeze into the tunnel with Floyd and press his body to the side for each small handful of rocky earth.
Fuck, man, this is so crazy.
Skeets was steadily clearing bucket after bucket until he could get a better look at the offending rock. As this day progressed, some workers had strung a set of lights through the tunnel to reach down to the shaft area. This extra lighting revealed what had not been understood until now. The rock wasn't just heavy and pressing on Floyd's foot.
It's wedged. It's wedged.
It slipped down into the crack of the cavern below. This created a wedge which trapped the rock so tightly that neither pushing nor pulling would move it. After a close inspection, Miller went up to talk with the gathered experts. Of all the supplies they had, the only thing that could possibly fit into the tiny hole was a crowbar and a small jack. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to do.
They might do this. They might do this!
On adrenaline now, and felt a surge of hope that Floyd might be free in just a few hours. He settled back into his awkward perch in the bottom of the shaft. The jack and crowbar were slowly pushed into the end of the tunnel near Floyd's feet. Miller couldn't reach that far,
Floyd.
But he pushed with the tips of his fingers to slide the jack in place.
Floyd, you gotta do it.
He slowly turned the arm to try to raise the platform to the rock's edge. It was painstaking work leaning forward and reaching out with the tips of your fingers. His back spasmed, and he fought every piercing cramp while trying to make it
Oh my god!
work. It wouldn't reach, so he moved it again, and then a third time, each effort requiring a contortion of his body to barely make a move left or right. He collapsed and heaved with exhaustion. The quiet, calming words of Floyd burned in his mind.
What?
Gently, Floyd encouraged, "You can do it, fella."
That's some shit I would say!
"I believe in you, fella." Miller could not give up on this man. He called for some wooden blocks and went through a series of positioning and repositioning, trying to lift the rock even a tiny bit. At one point, the jack had a nice grip on the rock's edge and each tiny quarter turn was holding. Skeets turned a little and held it, then turned some more, sensing that the rock was actually starting to lift. Then, the whole contraption collapsed with a quiet clank. He tried again, and again, each time making some small adjustment, but never making any progress on moving the rock.
No.
At 1 a.m., after 8 long hours of trying, he collapsed with exhaustion. Both mentally and physically, he was completely beat.
Is that a zombie?
He wrapped the last light bulb in the string around Floyd's neck for warmth and retreated to the surface. He just wanted to cry from exhaustion, anger, and pity. It was now the start of a new day, Wednesday, February 4th.
Come on.
Some men from the Kentucky Rock and Asphalt Company went in to take a look at the stability of the tunnels.
Get Johnny in there.
Their work to shore up the front section of the cave
Get Johnny!
really helped open up the pathways and make it passable for most of the rescuers' attempts.
Get Johnny.
The problem was that as you climbed deeper into the cave, the walls and ceiling
Johnny knows his holes, Lego.
were sagging
Johnny
and
knows his
bulging,
holes.
starting to literally close in on the pathway. Workers in the turnaround room were trying to figure out if they could widen the tiny hole when a frightening rumble was heard from within. The workers informed the team above the devastating news that there had been a cave-in. The entire tunnel was unstable, and anyone going inside would be risking their own life. Gerald again stood up and offered to go inside.
Go on, Johnny! Give it everything you got, Johnny. Get the fuck in there and make a fucking play, Johnny! Come on!
He slowly moved through the tight passages and listened for any additional rock falls. He got to the area of the cave-in and did what only Johnny could do.
Yes!
He got to work moving the rocks. It seemed like a hopeless task.
Go on, Johnny.
With obstacle after obstacle.
Go on, Johnny.
One rock at a time was cautiously pulled away, careful not to disturb the rocky gravel perched just above his own head. This effort took more than 8 hours, hunching and laying, trying to reach his arms in a painfully exhausting overhead reach. Just when he didn't think he could move anymore, he was able to secure.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT!
This is Johnny.
The GOAT!
That's
through a
Johnny.
small opening that revealed the light still glowing inside. Floyd was still communicating, though he seemed to be fading after nearly 6 days of being trapped.
McQueen?
Johnny knew that he would have to get a wild burst of adrenaline to pull these final rocks away.
Come on,
and then
Johnny!
make an attempt to save his friend. It was 10:30 at night now, and finally the path was opened once again.
Oh my god.
Johnny went out to collect tools to chisel away at the rock on Floyd's foot. He gathered the men, who would be part of the bucket brigade, to move the final rocks and gravel from around Floyd's legs. They were full of confidence that this would somehow be the successful effort to get Floyd out alive. They crawled through to the turnaround room and were stunned by what they saw. The ceiling had poured into the narrow passage leading down to Floyd. The cave-in was bigger and heavier than before, with the only path now being swamped in a sea of rocks, gravel, mud, and debris. The melting snow had swelled the walls and ceiling, and the weight just couldn't be held back. Johnny yelled out to Floyd, and he returned the call with a yell of his own. He was alive, and Johnny could not just leave him there.
Yeah.
The walls seemed to be—
Come on, Johnny!
ready to suffocate him at any moment.
Come on!
The other men backed out of this area, back to the reinforced entrance. Johnny was alone, digging in the pile of dirt, ragged and desperate to have something go his way.
Come on!
It was sickening. If he turned and left, he would essentially be abandoning his friend's only chance at rescue. He scooped out the new debris in the hole, and it just refilled from an endless source above him.
Fuck.
Larger rocks started
Place a torch down. Place a torch down. Minecraft, place a torch down.
tumbling down the mound, and Johnny was suffering. He filled his bucket and heard new rumblings. More silted rain came down on his head, face, and back. It was truly a death
Meaty
trap.
boy, big meaty. First off, good name. Second off, get some in the Discord. Every time you guys recommend stuff, I'll forget about it. So get in the Discord so I won't forget about it.
Johnny resigned himself to the hardest decision of his life.
No, don't leave him, Johnny!
But he had a family of his own. He retreated to the entrance, while new piles of gravel and rock accumulated in the path. He sat down and cried. He was done. It was now clear that although Floyd was still alive inside the tight tunnel, climbing in to rescue him would not be survivable. The governor brought in the National Guard, and the state finally took control of the rescue effort, with a plan to dig a hole straight down to Floyd's location. This would give them a chance to excavate around
What? Don't dig straight down! Never dig straight down!
him and bring him up to the surface through a reinforced shaft. On Thursday, February 5th, the 7th day of his entrapment, digging began. They were quite optimistic, expecting to reach Floyd within 30 hours. They needed to dig a shaft down 55 feet, then dig laterally to reach the narrow passage leading to Floyd. The enthusiasm waned as hours turned into days, and progress slowed to a crawl. There were problems with equipment, collapses, hard soil, heavy rains, and personnel disputes. This 30-hour dig stretched over the next 12 days.
I mean, he's obvious. Okay. Well, okay. Okay.
Yes, 12 full days of digging.
I mean,
During this time, there were news stories and radio serials about Floyd. There was a military inquest to see what went wrong in the initial
bro,
rescue effort.
12 days?
There were professionals coming and going with dozens of ideas on how to get to Floyd faster. As they got closer and closer, it was thought that they heard coughing deep in the shaft, keeping hopes alive that Floyd may still be
12
living.
days?
He had a trickle of water, so it was possible for him to survive.
Oh, because he could get the water. Ain't no way.
The light bulb that had been hung around his neck was being monitored for changes in the electrical pulse. It was thought that there was some interference with the electricity each time Floyd breathed. For
Breathed? Took a breath?
days, they were monitoring the scratchy interference, coming through nearly 20 times a minute.
If they clutch this?
This bulb was helping to keep Floyd a bit warmer as well. On Friday, February 13th, the bulb that had been keeping Floyd warm burnt out.
Not Friday the 13th. Not Friday the 13th. Not Friday the 13th. Oh my god, on Friday the 13th!
2010
What?
Chilean mine incident. 33 miners were trapped 700 meters underground for 69
Get down the
days,
Discord,
and they dug
Brody!
a hole straight down to
There
the
was no more
miners and
signal
used
on the
an
line of
elevator
any
to get
kind.
them out.
It was 2 full weeks that Floyd had been trapped and suffering. An astonishing amount of time under such a mental and physical nightmare. The shaft diggers continued on until Monday, February 16th,
If he
when they
lives.
finally broke through the tunnel and entered the cave shaft.
If he's in there.
The first man through the tunnel was only a few feet from Floyd. It was quickly determined that Floyd was dead. The coroner came down and formally made a determination of death. He stated that Floyd had lived for around 14 days trapped in the tunnel. He appeared to have only been dead for 3 days. It was stunning. After the final cave-in, Floyd had just laid alone in the cave, with only a trickle of water and the use of one arm, for 9 days, before he died. Floyd was an eager and talented cave explorer, in a time when it would have meant everything to his family if he could discover a touring cave. He dedicated 12 hours a day, for weeks, trying to find that one special place he could commercialize. In the end, he found exactly what he was looking for.